What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about NIO. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So NIO did have a absolute crazy day on Friday, went up 14.44%, getting above some very key resistance levels. So we'll kind of talk about that in a second. But as far as looking forward into this upcoming week, there isn't any macro data points that could really push Chinese stocks higher. Even companies unveiling the earnings. There is Nvidia that is coming out Wednesday after hours. Friday you have Alibaba, potentially could impact Chinese stocks depending on what they give for future guidance and whatever else. But in reality, it is going to be more of a technical driven week. And in NIO's case, that's pretty a-okay. One big thing as well, of course, will be the weekly registration numbers. I know a lot of people don't generally like to pay attention to them, but they do move NIO, I think it's fair to assume. So that one is going to be a big one, seeing now the third week for the L90. Interesting point though, over this weekend, I have not seen any actual articles about the ES8. I would have anticipated like a abundance of them, but interestingly enough, there hasn't really been that much more than what was stated on Friday, which mind you was very good, pushed the stock price significantly higher. But nonetheless, going into this upcoming week, 11.41% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 176 million shares overall being shorted. Shorts alone on Friday did return 3.9 million shares. And so you can kind of see shorts have returned quite a lot over the last little bit. So it does look as though back in, for instance, April, short interest was 11.92%. So shorts have returned a ton of shares since then. And I've seen some interesting comments, jokingly, of course, that whoever is shorting NIO has moved on to Lucid because shorts is kind of doing the complete 180 with Lucid. But nonetheless, when it comes down to shorts returning, they are adding a certain level of buying pressure. Going into this upcoming week, I anticipate the exact same to occur, that most likely they will just continue to return, probably to roughly around that, I'd say that 10% range, so another 1.41 just this week alone. Looking at the options though, there was a immense amount of options being done on Friday. So there was 51 million in calls, 6.5 in puts, and then 51% of all the options being done. Despite how high it went, there's still a certain level of optimism that is going to continue. So 51% of all the options were bullish in nature. One thing I do want to bring up though is that there was 113,000 in the money options. So essentially, in case you don't know, that does mean market makers are going to have to cover all that. So essentially it works out to be 113 million shares. Just to give you a quick overview, the average is only 77.8. So potentially we have a good gamma squeeze on our hands. And so of course there isn't any written rule that market makers have to cover on Monday. Usually is the case, but from what I've seen, to alleviate a lot of damage, they sometimes roll it over to the Tuesday and as well, let's say Wednesday and so forth. But even looking forward into this upcoming week, if NIO is able to hold even remotely the gains that it did have, you're going to see also a following gamma squeeze going into the following week. So you have 3,000 looking forward into this upcoming week, of course, 3,000 at that $4 strike price, 6,000 at that 450, 11,000 at that 5, 15,000 at that 550, and then you have 28,000 at that 6, 11,000 at that 650. So with NIO closing at 634 on Friday, and it did go up slightly after hours as well, but with it closing at 634, best case scenario did play out. So definitely deserving of a round of applause. So yeah, interesting times. One thing as well I like to look at is both the secondary market and dark pool. So you did see some random transactions after hours on Friday, which is rather abnormal. So it is fair to assume that market makers covered some shares, but clearly nowhere near what has to be done. So there was 1.02 million, one transaction there, 5.3, 3.1, and that was pretty much it on the dark pool. Secondary market, you didn't see any real substantial transactions on the after hours. So again, going into this upcoming week, things could get very interesting. Aside from all that though, with it at 634, it was able to successfully close above this R3 looking at the fib levels. And so I'm looking at the 1-day chart on a side note. So 632 and then 562 is going to be good support levels. Moving over to the 1 week though, this is going to give us a good representation of what to expect next. So 776, 902, and then 1106. What really happened back in September when obviously NIO had their last substantial burst higher, you did have it bouncing off of a key resistance level. And unfortunately at that stage, shorts really doubled down and caused it to kind of lose a lot of momentum. So this time around, anticipate shorts not to fully give in, but most likely there's going to be a key point. Once it gets to probably around that same 730 range, you might see shorts wake up a little bit. So I do feel like this week, early on, you're going to see a nice push higher, and hopefully they do actually put out some pretty good articles and some analysts give some good ratings to justify even higher highs, which in reality could be $8, $9 and so forth. But I don't want to always give you guys complete rainbows and sunshine because of course I think generally shorts are very manipulative when it comes down to NIO. They've lost a ton of money over the last little bit, but most likely if history is going to repeat itself, they will be really doubling down closer to this level right over here. So this R1, so 776, just anticipate them to get a little bit more active. Again, similar to what happened in September. So let me know your viewpoint on that. When it comes down to it, like I mentioned, anticipate some new analyst ratings. There hasn't been anything posted as far as I'm aware over this weekend, but most likely because of the hype, ES8 related, you should see more coming down the pipeline. So dependent on the price target, whether it be 650 or above, then most likely you'll see NIO really move higher. So as a consensus over the last 3 months, $4.69 is that price target, representing a 26.03% downside. So I think analysts are just slow to the game. So most likely a lot of analysts are very much just sheep, and they will see NIO start to really move higher, and they will start to give ratings and adjust their ratings to probably be that 6, 7, and so forth. So aside from that, like I mentioned, after hours on Friday did go up roughly another 1%, and so good stuff as far as that. But yeah, I think this upcoming week is going to be a pretty kick-ass week, and yeah, definitely, I think it's long past due. So let me know your thoughts on NIO in the comments below. One thing I do want to bring up though is I always kind of go over where volume does come from, and especially in NIO's history, algorithmic trading has been like a big factor. And most of the time, algorithmic trading is kind of left for institutional investors, and that's it. But because of Moomoo, they actually allow you to set up as complex or as simple as you want algorithms, and so you can kind of trade accordingly, and so it goes over absolutely every key metric. I will be doing a deeper dive in this. I wasn't intending on actually putting out a video this weekend about this, but it is so complex, and I want to make sure I have everything just perfect for that video. But for those of you that like to play around, take a look at Moomoo. I'll link in the description below and also the comments. You can kind of play around, also back test it as well. So even if we back test, let's say MACD strategy, it goes over, clearly I didn't set it up right, so down 99%, but you can kind of do like dual moving averages, set that up, and various things. So this one right here goes up 52%. So it's all dependent on the parameters that you do pick. So highly recommend a lot of individuals that are wanting the next big thing for investing to kind of sign up for Moomoo. So one thing I do want to share though is they actually have a kick-ass promo where if you just deposit $100, they give you $50 back. So that in among itself is a pretty good return on investment. So whether you use that extra $50 and buy more NIO, as what I've been doing, surprisingly enough, I know some people might cringe at it, But when NIO was moving higher, even though I saw on social media a lot of people saying, hey, I sold, I took profits, I actually bought a little bit more. I only because I like the momentum that's happening behind the scenes. You see a lot of solid institutions buying. So yeah, definitely I think higher highs are coming for NIO. So where do you see things going for this week? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon. I give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.